Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another costumeco live stream. And today, we're actually doing it at a bit of a different time. We're a little earlier today. Usually we do it on Saturday night. But I have a wonderful guest with me named Middle-earth Lore. Hello, Middle-earth.
Hi.
He's got an avatar, so you won't get to see his handsome face today. But anyway, I just want to, well, so Middle-earth, and like, just, we met in a sort of an odd way, right? I tend to do this. I meet people online. So do you want to mention how we met?
We were basically in Nick and Dee's live stream. A lot of people actually watch that every Saturday, and if you don't watch that, go ahead and check that out because they give you awesome tips, and I don't know where I would be without them. But yeah, we were just, I guess, chatting in the live stream, and we found out that, we have similar interests, and then we decided, we'd do this live stream. So
yes, well, I mean, okay, so how I came to know you is I think it was in Dee's stream. So Dee is a fellow creator, as is Nick, and they're both YouTubers. And I immediately, when Dee was looking at your channel, I was like, oh my God, Middle-earth Lore. I knew right away what you were all about, about Lord of the Rings. And I thought you had a very impressive channel. And then I think I messaged you saying that I was really impressed. But you said you actually have a couple of other channels. So this is a newer channel for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, I've been away for a little bit. I just wanted to let you know, I think last time I was on, I had Red Wolf, who is actually an arms and armor expert, Middle-earth. You might enjoy some of his some of the stuff he has to talk about, because I think he's a Lord of the Rings fan as well.
I think
we were talking about
live stream, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we were talking mostly about Game of Thrones, but there's obviously a huge crossover. And then, but anyway, so that's the last time I streamed. And then, but everyone, I wanted to let you know, I was on. There's another creator. His name is In Deep Geek. I don't know if you know him. He does mostly Game of Thrones. He does Westworld as well. And so there was some Game of Thrones pictures that came out this week. So I was just on his stream for like a 20-minute little segment. So I'll put that in the description below. So if anybody hasn't seen it, you can check that out. And then I also released a video last night called Costume Symbolism of Game of Thrones, where I look at some of the costumes and analyze some of the symbols there. So that just got out last night. So I've got that in the description. But before we start, I just want to say hi to everybody. Aaron's here. Let me just, last time it was so funny. There were people in the chat, and then I didn't even notice, like, I think I hadn't refreshed my screen. So I was just going to say a shout out to everyone. So we have Aaron LaFay is here. He's my handy dandy sidekick, who is also helping me on a future video we're doing. We're doing the best costumes of Game of Thrones men coming up. And he also helped me with the best costumes of Game of Thrones women, along with Tatiana. And A3 is here. That's a new, A3 is one of my newer viewers. Hello, A3. Andrea's here. Asen's here from Germany. Hi, Asen. AU Packmule, Sabina. So we've got a little bit of a crowd to start with. This is okay. So before we get into the meat of what we want to chat about, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, Middle-earth Lore?
Sure. Well, I've had several channels. I wouldn't call myself, I guess, a new YouTuber because I've been here technically since 2009. But over the course of all those channels, 6 of which have failed because I had no idea about how niches worked, and I didn't know how SEO worked, and overall I was just a kid, so my videos are a bit terrible. But on my last channel, that one I still have up, and but basically I decided that I wanted to tackle this because I feel like if I didn't, talk about something that I genuinely love and know quite a bit about, it would be kind of a missed opportunity. So,
yeah. So, oh, and I just want to say hi, Peg Lake Pete is here, and Tatiana's here. Hi, Tatiana. And Tatiana and Aaron, I'm going to just mention you guys a bit later in the stream. So tell me, how did you get interested in Lord of the Rings? How did that all come about?
Oh, well. Actually, Lord of the Rings is the very first movie I've ever seen. I was 2 when when I was taken to the theaters to watch it, and I mean, obviously, I didn't understand what was going on at the time.
Oh, you were 2?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you must be a young man.
Yeah. So I saw every time the orcs apparently would show up on screen, I just laughed at them, whatever. But then it became, after I watched it a few times after that on DVD and so on and so forth, it just, everything that was that the story was just, everything about it just seemed so perfect to me. And then especially when I read the books, they were just amazing. So I just find that this is probably my all-time favorite franchise. And I don't know if it's to do with me being exposed to it for such a long time, or if it's, just the storytelling. But yeah.
That makes sense, because one of my early, I think my first science fiction movie I ever saw was Star Wars. So for me, that it's very profound. So it's obviously it's left a lot, lasting impact on you, because it was such an early experience for you. So you did see the movies first, then you read the books. Like I mentioned to you, I haven't read the books. Of course, I love the movies, which are done by Peter Jackson, and he's also done the prequels. Did you see the prequels as well?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. So how many times have you seen them?
Honestly, too many to count, I think.
Okay. So, and then, so YouTube, you've been doing this for a while. Now this channel is new though. I think I noted that you'd started in like December, like just around
Christmas Day. Christmas Day. Yeah.
And, so what's the response been like so far for it?
Well, I think it's been much better than my last channel, because my last channel took about 6 months or so to get to 100, whereas this was just one day over a month, and I got to 100. So,
oh, that's awesome! Hey, Cricket's here. Hi, Cricket. Now, Cricket, she is a fellow creator. She knows both me and Middle Earth Lore from Nick and Dee's live stream, and just in general, she's in the group. She's in the posse. So she said she can only pop in for a little bit, but we really appreciate you showing your support of us. That's awesome. And then also Pretty Dark is here. Hey, Pretty Dark, how are you? I'm hoping that 30 Days will pop in. He's usually around. Hopefully he'll come soon. And she gave us a heart. That's really nice. So now I was just saying, I was really impressed by some of your artwork and so on that you've done in your thumbnails and your banners. So do you have a bit of a design background?
Yeah, actually, I'm like in university. I've been majoring in communication and digital media, and graphic design is something, and computers in general has been something that's been a big part of my life. So graphic design, especially, is one thing that I've been doing for many years now.
Yeah, so it's obvious. Now let's bring this over to Game of Thrones, because you mentioned to me you're also a Game of Thrones fan.
Oh yeah.
And have you read the books or just the show?
No, I just watched the show. Yeah.
You watched the show too, so you're all caught up on it. So if we talk about anything, it won't be a spoiler. Okay. No, guys. So we might get into spoilers here. I always forget to warn you. So up to season 7. So now, so you saw Lord of the Rings many, many times before you came to see Game of Thrones and read the books and so on. So when you first saw Game of Thrones, did you say, oh my God, there is so much that's the same? Or was there a lot that was the same or a lot that was different? What were your initial impressions?
Well, when I first heard about the show the very first time, I instantly got a Lord of the Rings feel. That's kind of one of the reasons that so many people are attracted to it, because a lot of people have seen Lord of the Rings and have been interested in that for so long, and are just interested in all these kind of medieval stories, that it kind of grabs you and makes you want to watch it.
Yeah, like one of the things that that I'd heard about Lord of the Rings initially is that people thought that it couldn't be done as a movie or as a feature film or several feature films in the same way that Game of Thrones. Like I think George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones thinking this could never make it to the big screen. I'm going to make it so big and so crazy it could never be done. So do you think it's because of the type of technology we have nowadays, like the way we're able to do CGI and so on, that we're actually able to do these types of stories, these fantasy stories?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think if you watch the animated versions of Lord of the Rings, sure, it's back in the 70s, it might have been a really great thing, but the way that it was told, it doesn't have the same impact as the way it does today. And even if you look at Star Wars back in 77, even though that was ahead of its time, if you compare it to the way the stories are being told now, it's a completely different playing field.
Yes. And then the other thing, and I think this is something that George Martin has mentioned in interviews, like people have a different, like I think at one point maybe fantasy didn't get sort of the people it didn't get sort of the what do you call it, the cred that maybe more dramas would get. So nowadays people are actually saying, hey, fantasy does have an appeal to even the masses, to the general. Like, I mean, I think Game of Thrones is probably one of the most successful shows of all time, if not of all time. And the same with Lord of the Rings had, I mean, people like me who had never been like a fan, like a, you know, a fantasy person, like into fantasy. I was more into science fiction. I like, you know, clamored to go see it. So it's interesting. It's sort of opened up a wider, you know, wider world for us, for many people, I think. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I honestly like even for Lord of the Rings. I don't know if I would ever even have gotten exposed to it if the movies weren't around. And even with the movies, after I wanted to explore more and I read the books, there was just so much more to explore even after that. Like the Silmarillion, which is kind of a prequel to The Hobbit, for example, and then all these other stories. It's just a much bigger world than you could have ever imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Tatiana has a good point. She says, I've always thought that without Lord of the Rings, there would be no Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is basically a loving deconstruction of Lord of the Rings. And then Asen says she agrees. So it's true, right? It sort of paved the way. Yeah. George Martin might not have ever, you know, it might have never have seen the light of day had it not been for the success of Lord of the Rings. So it really did. And it also, in terms of the technology, it really, they created technology, I think, even just to be able to do it. I don't know if it was Industrial Light and Magic or the one down in New Zealand. You probably know what that one's called. If you guys know in the chat. Now, I was going to tell everyone who's watching that if you have anything to ask of Middle-earth Lore, you can, are you actually in the chat, Middle-earth Lore?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can either add him or at me, and then we'll answer your questions. Cricket says, hey, costumeco. Oh, I already read that one. Sorry. Never mind. All right. So let's start off with, you had your initial impressions. So what aspects, I mean, George Martin has obviously stated, you know, that he is heavily inspired by Tolkien. So what major themes in Game of Thrones versus Lord of the Rings do you see? Like, we're not doing, I was trying to explain to Tatiana and Aaron earlier, we're not doing like which one's better. We're just talking about what the inspirations are. So what were your first sort of big picture themes that you think that are similar?
Well, there's one that I know for sure. I mean, it's not that you would see that you would normally have taken away from it. So, for example, the deaths, right? The amount of deaths that George has written, it actually came from one particular death in the Fellowship of the Ring, which was Gandalf, and and because he was such a major character, that to him felt like anyone can die, and that kind of sprouted all of his other major character deaths.
Yeah, so like for instance, in Game of Thrones, we have Eddard Stark, who is basically like the protagonist of the show, and they kill him off before the end of season 1. I mean, poor Sean Bean, he gets killed. But no, that's a very interesting point. So is there any other big theme things like that you've noticed that are similar?
I mean, aside from the dragons and such, and the clothing and the whole style of it, again, one thing that I should have mentioned before when I was attracted to the show, and probably a lot of people, was that the fact that Sean Bean was in it, right? Everyone knew him as Boromir at some point. Now he's transformed into a completely separate character, but because Sean Bean was in it, it kind of got people to want to watch it even more so.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So he was in both shows, and obviously, I don't know the backstory behind it because I'm in the costume area more, but obviously when they probably approached Sean Bean, they needed a big star, right? And so they probably thought, hey, if we got Sean Bean doing Game of Thrones, we'll probably bring over some of the Lord of the Rings lovers as well. So that's a really good point. Now, in terms of the way they break up all of the sort of the fantasy elements, like Lord of the Rings feels a little bit more fantasy than like, you know, you got the elves and you've got all these different types of groups of individuals, non-human individuals, whereas Game of Thrones feels a little bit more human, like a little bit more grounded. What are your thoughts on all of that? I'm not an expert on this. I'm just asking what you think.
I feel like to me, I don't know if this is actually what happened, but I feel like because Game of Thrones came after the Witcher series, I feel like that was actually sort of impacted. Like Lord of the Rings came first, then The Witcher, and then that was a stepping stone towards Game of Thrones. So like he was able to, I guess, kind of take some of the things from Lord of the Rings, but also I feel like it was probably, I feel like anyway, that it was really heavily inspired by the Witcher series.
Yeah, and actually that's an interesting point because so The Witcher they're making into I think either a film or a television
Yeah,
series.
Netflix.
Netflix, so that's
Yeah.
going to be exciting. And also somebody else mentioned Dune. Frank Herbert's Dune is going to be made into a feature. I mean, they've been multiple attempts at doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And there, obviously there was the Jodorowsky failed attempt to do it. That's a great documentary, by the way, everyone. If you ever want to watch Jodorowsky's Dune, it's so good. It used to be on Netflix. I'm not sure if it is anymore. Hindsight POV said Weta. Yeah, Weta is the New Zealand Weta. Yeah, thank you very much for that. And Eva's here. She said something really nice. She just said, just wanted to say that I enjoy your careful analysis of the costumes in various series. Thank you so much. And then Hindsight said, the Lord of the Rings films raised the standards exponentially for production design for fantasy film projects, fantasy costume sets, props, since they were no longer cheesy or hokey. That's a really good point. So like, for instance, when I was a girl, I don't know if you've seen this, there is a, Helen Mirren is in a version of Excalibur. Did you ever see that?
No,
I think it's it probably was the 70s or the 80s, but it's a very good point. And even like the version of Dune that was done by, I don't know what, I can't remember his name. He's a famous director. It was a little bit on the cheesy side. So a lot of fans were sort of disappointed at that. So I think that's definitely true. The production values are that much higher now. So now, so what are your favorite aspects of Lord of the Rings? And then what are some of your favorite aspects of Game of Thrones?
Well, okay. I mean, a lot of people like to compare Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, but to me, it's almost like comparing Star Wars and Star Trek, where it's like people think it's very like there should be a war between the two, and that they're very competitive. But they're honestly, I feel like they're completely separate, and they're very different stories that they're telling. Although some things may have been inspired from one another, but I feel like they're completely different. So what I love about Lord of the Rings is the world building as well as with Game of Thrones, but especially with Lord of the Rings is like all the characters, they're the way that they have a kind of bond between each other, like the fellowship, this brotherhood that they have. I feel like that Lord of the Rings is more not only world building focus driven and story driven, but also like in terms of the character development is kind of the main thing that they're going for. I'm not really sure, but with Game of Thrones, it's more like it's almost applying the real world to a kind of medieval setting, but with kind of somewhat fantasy elements towards it. So having dragons and such. So almost kind of like applying Skyrim and all these other kind of things to like a real world situation, but on your television.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But one of the things obviously that Tolkien did and what George Martin did is they both built these worlds. Maybe Tolkien did it a little more extensively, but they have maps. There, you can actually like physically look at where a location is, where people live. And they created each world, each location has its own sort of set of rules and principles and look and mood and tone and everything. And obviously, we were saying that George Martin obviously was a massive Tolkien fan, and he always cites him whenever he's speaking of. And I think even like languages, I think I know that Tolkien created these languages, right? I don't know if Martin did that as much.
Martin, he's done some, like I guess he's created his own languages, but I feel like Tolkien went to an extent that has surprised many people, especially me, where it's like, especially because he fought in the World War, both World Wars, and he was actually developing these stories is particularly surprising for me because it's just the amount that he puts into it, the like every little detail is incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you bring up a good point. So we have one author who has served in 2 world wars, and then we have another author who's kind of a nerd that has was a conscientious objector, did not serve, right? So it's interesting how they would have both. Like, I know that you know that not Tolkien, sorry, but I know that Martin is sort of anti-war, and a lot of people would probably be surprised to see that, know that, because reading his stories, there's so much war in it. So it's interesting. So they come to it with a little bit of a different perspective, but do you think they sort of arrive at the same place?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that you could say that they do. The only difference is, like, I mean, the fan base. I feel like with Game of Thrones and the Song of Fire and Ice, when it comes to that, the fan base tends to be more forgiving with like getting all your information down and being on point with whatever information you're delivering. But whereas with Tolkien, it's like, because there's so much in it, it feels like you kind of have to explore everything, and you know, it's not as forgiving, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, and also, and the fact that George hasn't finished it too. It's an unfinished series, so that's a little bit more challenging. I just wanted to read a few comments. Hindsight. Oh, actually, Tatiana, thank you. She said it's David Fincher's Dune. That's what I couldn't remember. David Fincher. And Tatiana said she saw Excalibur in school. So I wonder what she thought of that. Hindsight says Lord of the Rings feels based on folklore, while Game of Thrones feels based on world history. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, pretty much nailed it right there. Yeah. It feels like, yeah, based on especially with stories like The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, right? That is, a lot of it is just about him singing. He's a very joyful and playful person, and you know, it doesn't, you don't feel like it's as serious as Game of Thrones. And yeah.
Well, and that, so yeah, so Game of Thrones is based on the Wars of the Roses and the 100 Years' War. Like, right, you know, sorry, George Martin was a huge history fan, so he, as growing up, he read a lot about history. He loves that too, and you know, the Red Wedding, for instance, is based on a world. Yeah, so that's a really great point. I wanted to say, Sunshine and Silver Arrow is here. She says, "Hi guys." Just stopping by to say hi and give a supportive thumbs up. I might be back in 1 hour if you're still here. We'll probably won't be going to, we'll probably just be doing this is an hour. This is the first time, if anyone's just joining, this is the first time I've had Middle Earth Lore on. We just met like maybe like what, like a couple of weeks ago. I have this habit of just like going, hey, want to come on my live stream? And for some reason, no one's ever said no. I don't know why. No one's ever said no to me. It's sort of strange. Like, you think you would never go up to someone in the road, in the street, and just, you know, say, hey, do you want to come on my YouTube channel? But we do that on, but like you said, we met through mutual.
The internet is very different.
It's very different for sure. So, all right. So where should we go here now? Okay. So being a costume person, obviously, what are your thoughts? Like, what are your thoughts on just the visuals of the 2 shows? Like, you know, the production, the costumes, what the makeup, the hair. What are your sort of initial thoughts on both those shows?
I mean,
you don't have to pick a favorite. Just, you know.
I mean, they're very similar. But I don't really know what to say, because with the makeup and the costumes, I feel like the makeup especially is very heavy towards Lord of the Rings, because, you know, all the orcs and even getting the hobbits down with their feet. But with Game of Thrones, because there aren't too many different races, they just they focus more on the costumes. But even the costumes are very complex. Like, I've seen a lot of your videos, and you know, there's so many things that I hadn't noticed, which were really cool.
Yeah, you know, I was going to tell you, so one of the most requested analysis or videos that people ask me for is Lord of the Rings. And I said, I don't feel comfortable doing them. I'd like to, but the reason why I haven't done it is because it's so in depth. Like you were saying, like, you've got all these different you've got all these different creatures, all these different, you know, non-human. So we're dealing with like a whole other thing. And I don't tend to do makeup and hair as much. I tend to just do the clothing. So it would be an enormous undertaking. So what I did say, I mentioned this to Red Wolf last time when he was in the stream with me. He's an armor and weapons expert. I said, if I had someone to help me, like say someone like him to help me with weapons, and then maybe someone like you to help me, I would be willing to do it, but it would have to be a collaboration. That's how I did my Star Wars costume video, by the way. I did it collabing with somebody else because it was just so, it's just so overwhelming over, you know, I'm like, would I do it by the character? Would I do it by the movie? Like, I don't even know. I would be very overwhelmed by it. It could be like a 5-year process. Right?
Yeah.
So are there any other sort of like things, like, you know, we talked about themes, we talked about, what about the characters? Like, what are your sort of thoughts on the Lord of the Rings characters versus what the types of characters? Are we seeing sort of archetypes? Are we seeing, you know, we've got the heroes and we've got like who would Tyrion be, do you think, in Lord of the Rings? Or is there an equivalent of him?
I don't think there would ever be an equivalent to Tyrion. Because Tyrion, I've heard, is very different in even in Game of Thrones. He's different from in the show than he is to the books.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yes,
and so apparently in the books he's not shown in the best light, whereas in the show he's kind of our golden boy, if you want, right? Where he's kind of made to be liked, right? And with Lord of the Rings, I don't know. I'm not really sure if there's any character that's exactly like him.
Yeah, like I was thinking like Samwell and Sam, they seem like, you know, a best friend sidekick. They seem very similar. Would I think that maybe like Jon Snow could be Frodo, maybe?
I'd say Jon Snow. Jon Snow is, I mean, in terms of their friendship, maybe, but yeah, Jon Snow would probably be more like Aragorn, if anything.
Okay,
especially because he has like a special sword, right? He has Longclaw, whereas Aragorn has Isildur's sword.
Sure. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, so now one of the things I noticed about, you can tell me what you think about this, with like we were talking about, Game of Thrones has sort of a medieval, you know, British medieval history look to it, but there's a huge Celtic look, maybe even almost Viking look to Lord of the Rings. Did you sort of observe that?
Yeah.
In terms of the weapons and things like that?
I'd say, yeah, it's pretty similar in terms of
that. It's pretty similar. Is there a reason behind that? Do you know? Why there would be a kind of more of a Celtic, you know, look to it, maybe Viking look, as opposed to, like, are they basing it off of a particular look and period? I'm not even sure. In medieval history? Middle Earth, are you there? I think we've lost him, guys. I thought he wasn't answering me because he didn't understand. Okay, we'll try and get him back. Okay, let me see if I can get him back. Hold on. Maybe his mic just went out. Okay, does anybody have, like, while we're trying to get Middle Earth back, does anybody have some comments that they want to make? Aaron's saying, hello to new arrivals. Adrian's here. Hi, Adrian. How are you? It's nice to see you. I always recognize. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, you can hear me still? Okay.
Yeah, I lost you for a minute.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Let me click off this. Okay. Did you hear? I don't know. I was sort of rambling on.
No, I was trying to answer, and now I don't know. I forgot what I was saying.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I think I was. Maybe you guys can tell me what I was talking about. Hindsight POV says, from a design standpoint, the Baron does have a good design. I don't know. Oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Tatiana says, hey, don't count out Arwen, Galadriel, or Ewan. They're badasses in their own. Am I saying that right? Galadriel?
Yeah.
They're badasses in their own right. Although, yeah, Lord of the Rings is a bit of a sausage fest. I was going to say that. Okay, that's one of the things that I noticed, that the fact there's very few women in Lord of the Rings. What's that all about?
Well, I'm not really too sure what he was trying to go for with that. Actually, that's actually one of the topics I wanted to research a bit more. But yeah, I'm not really entirely sure why it's kind of mostly focused on that.
Well, I'm wondering, maybe it's possible. Okay, so if he served in World War I and World War II, women wouldn't have served. Perhaps that's what it is. It's based on his own experiences. And obviously, like, women tend to be, I'm thinking of like, John Carter. Women tend to be more there as sort of femme fatales or romantic interests, as opposed to like, strong characters. So, but it's probably just based. I would say that it would be based maybe just more on his experiences, the time. Like, what year was the first book written?
I believe it was. Well, he wrote it. He wrote. I know he wrote The Hobbit in 32, I believe, and then I think he published it in 37.
Okay, yeah, Pretty Dark saying the same thing. Sure. Pretty Dark said the same thing. World War I, no women in war. Yeah. So, it's not like I was offended by it. I was just sort of wondering, because especially with fantasy, you would think you would have more women. So in hindsight says, sorry, we got off topic a bit. Oh, no problem. Talking about Dune, David Lynch's Dune. So the new one apparently is going to be starring Timothy Chalamet. I think that's how you say it. And he's the little cutie. And apparently it's going to be directed by the French Canadian director, whatever his name is, from Arrival.
I've never heard of this series.
Of Dune?
Yeah.
I haven't read the book. I saw the David Lynch version and I saw Jodorowsky's Dune. I was going to say something. It was actually H.R. Giger was actually involved in the Jodorowsky one, not in the David Lynch one. So if for any of you guys wondering, that's the guy who did Alien. And it was kind of all really weird because they did Alien together, but before that they were working on the original Dune with Jodorowsky. And if you watch it, the documentary, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, but it got canned. It got shut down because of the money. So it never happened. And then Dan O'Bannon, who wrote Alien, went on to write Alien and work with Giger to do the creature in Alien. So that's what the story was about behind there. Okay, who else is saying? Heinz says, okay. Oh, Villeneuve, yes. Denis Villeneuve. And then Tatiana says, wasn't it World War II? Yeah, so Tatiana, what we were saying is that Tolkien was in both World War I and World War II. What a terrible thing, eh? To be in both world wars and then survive. I think we've lost Middle Earth again. Middle Earth, are you there? Middle Earth. Ground control to Middle Earth. We've lost him again. Adrian says, I think Lord of the Rings is more traditional English Middle Age. Oh, there you are. Hi.
There you go.
Welcome back, my friend.
Yeah, so I was just answering the question. World War II is he was writing it for a very long time. He's been writing the series for a very long time, and it was kind of during both wars when he was in the process of writing that. But he published it, Lord of the Rings anyway, afterwards. So
he was actually writing it while he was on.
He had different ideas, and he would write them down, and he built the world.
That's a good way to keep your mind off of what you're dealing with, right? Yeah. It's like Flanders Fields was written in the field, apparently. Oh, hey, UK Here We Grow is here. Hi, how are you? UK Here We Grow is I'm in a group. Now, I'm taking you a different place here, but Middle Earth Lord, do you know Brian G. Johnson?
Yeah, definitely.
So if any YouTubers are in here, Brian G. Johnson is a fellow creator. He helps other YouTubers sort of succeed. And I'm doing a seminar, like a course with him right now. And UK Here We Grow is in the course with me. So it's really nice to see you. He has a gardening channel where he grows giant cabbages. Well, no, that's not the only thing he does, but on his banner, it's so funny. He has like this massive, massive cabbage. So hello, it's really nice to see you. And then Tatiana says, damn you, bad signal. Are you in the States?
Me?
Are you Middle Earth? Yeah, where you live?
No, we both live in Canada.
Oh, you're in Canada. You're a fellow Canadian. Oh my God, how did I not know that about you? Yeah. So Middle Earth and I are both Canadians. I think actually maybe I did know this about you. Did
Yeah,
I know this?
yeah. I mean, I'm planning
There's
maybe I might come to Toronto Comic Con, but I'm not
Yeah,
entirely
that's
sure.
right. So everyone like this is right. We talked about this. I forgot. So every year, guys, I go to Toronto Comic Con, which is like this. It's like a fandom. Like it's kind of like the one in the States in San Diego,
Mhm.
but we have one in Toronto. It's the biggest one in the country. They do them all over, but this is the biggest one in the country. So I go and meet like I do this crazy thing where I go up to people and say, "Hey, can I talk to you about your costume?" And again, they let me do it. I don't know why, but people from Toronto are just sort of funny like that. So you were talking about maybe coming. That would be so cool if you did.
Yeah, I don't. I might go to if I go, I might even go to Fan Expo just because it's bigger.
Yeah, the Fan Expo
Yeah,
is the bigger
yeah,
one. Sorry,
yeah,
that's the one
yeah,
in August,
yeah.
just sort of Labor Day weekend. So
Hmm.
I went to that one. Yeah, the Fan Expo. I'm not going to go probably to the other one, to
Hmm.
Toronto Comic Con. That's
Hmm.
in March, I think, because it's not as big. So that's sort of funny. We have this coincidence.
Hmm.
There are a lot of Canadian YouTubers.
Hmm. One of my favorite YouTubers, I'd say, is Star Wars Theory. Even he is Canadian as well.
Oh, really? That's so cool.
Yeah,
His channel's called Star Wars Theory.
yeah.
That's a good name, actually. It's nice and simple, easy to
He's
remember.
yeah, he's actually one of my influences for even starting this channel in particular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Asun, she's in Germany. She says, what I noticed in the Lord of the Rings movies is that the embroidery, details, and ornaments on the costumes of the different folks are in sync with the design of their buildings. That's a very interesting thing. And I think we would see that, like you would see like especially like Celtic knots and that type of thing, you would see that
Hmm.
in architecture and clothing. And then she says, and kind of in sync with how they are, at least with the dwarves and elves. And then she says, both have Celtic like knots and ornaments, but the elves more intricate and fine and elegant, and the dwarfs more robust. I don't know how to better describe it. I am German. Yeah, Asen, I don't know what you're talking about. Your English is probably better than mine. You're doing great, girl. Asen's an amazing, she's an amazing,
Hmm.
she makes dolls that
Hmm.
she like. I don't know if you've ever done a Lord of the Rings doll, Asun, but she does these beautiful recreations of
Hmm.
character dolls, and she's done some Star Wars ones, and she's done Game of Thrones,
I'm
and
I'm just
so
gonna I'll check it out right now.
yeah. So here I've screwed up my phone here. Okay, so now the next thing is now okay, like is there anything I haven't covered, or any other insights that you have about Lord of the Rings, big picture, small picture, that you think might have influenced Game of Thrones, even not even George Martin, maybe even just the series, like maybe the showrunners? Is there anything that sort of stood out to you?
In terms of that, I'm not too I don't know too much about that. The only thing that I kind of knew was, that Martin was influenced by the death and, obviously the themes and so on and so forth. But aside from that, I'm not really.
Yeah. um Aaron says, one of these days I shall make my way to Canadian Comic Con. So Aaron
Mhm.
and Tatiana, actually, I was going to mention this after. They are both probably my first viewers that I ever had. And do you have anybody like that, like who you just sort of has stuck with you kind of through since the beginning with you, or come over from other
I mean,
channels?
I'm still, to be honest, I'm still at the beginning. So, I
Yeah.
mean, because I would never actually get too far with where I was going with any of my channels, because that's pretty much one of the reasons why I started it, is because, when I didn't have a niche, and people, or it was sort of a niche, but because it wasn't very well concentrated, people would watch the video, each video, like a lot, but then they wouldn't come back because, I'd be covering a different topic, for example.
Oh yeah, because so if anybody doesn't know, so what Middle Earth is talking about is that when you're a YouTube creator, you have to kind of really have a solid niche or niche, however you want to say it. So mine's costumes, obviously, right? So although right now my live streams, I tend to riff and go off onto other things a little bit, which is, I think what Brian was saying is that's the one place you can kind of do it if you want to talk about other things. So, but for the videos themselves, I try to keep it to costumes. So if I was to do a video about, hey, I'm going to make my favorite dessert, then that
Hey,
might be a little bit
Nick is
weird.
in the chat.
What's that? Oh,
Nick
hey,
is in the
Nick.
house.
Nick is in the house. Yoo-hoo. Hey, Nick. How are you? Nick, welcome. And Nick, this is the first time that Middle Earth and I have actually chatted with each other. So he's come in to talk about talking about the inspiration behind Game of Thrones, how that show was influenced by Lord of the Rings. So we were just saying at the beginning, we're not saying one is better than the other. I don't think anybody would want to say that. They both are their own unique thing. It's the same way that a lot of book lovers and show lovers will say, you've got the show, you've got the books, right? So it's really nice to see you. Thank you for popping in. Did you know, actually, Middle Earth, did you know that I'm trying to get Dee to come on the show? You might have seen that at one point.
Yeah.
Him, and he's making I think it's called a Mandalorian. It's a type of Star Wars character, and he's doing the full armor. It's like a cosplay. So I said, okay, once you're done it, you have to come on the show and we have to talk about it. I'd love to hear all about it.
Mandalorian armor?
Yeah, it's crazy. You should see it. He showed it on his live stream before.
Because if you didn't know this, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Like after Lord of the Rings, then there's Star Wars.
Well, we'll have to have you come on and we'll talk about Star Wars then, because I'm a big. I told you. So, what I was saying, if anybody's just joining, Middle Earth Lore, the very first like science fiction fantasy show you ever saw was Lord of the Rings. You were 2 years old in the theater. Some people might say that you're a little bit young, although you probably didn't understand it at the time. My very first experience with science fiction was Star Wars, and my brother was a big nerd, so he was always making models and weapons and stuff like that in his bedroom, like a big geek. So he had like, you know, a giant Millennium Falcon, flying in the air, and he was a Star Trek fan as well. So those were our sort of first experiences. And so, yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like, it's definitely my top 10 movie. My favorite movie of all time, though, is Blade Runner. I think you guys all know that. I've told you that. So let me just see what else everyone else is saying. Aaron saying, hi, Nick Niman. Oh, yeah. So I was mentioning earlier, so Aaron and Tatiana are actually one of my earliest, most solid friends that I've made through the channel. How it started was I said, hey guys, like if anyone wants to send me one of the things they suggest is if you want to get to know your viewers, like leave a comment. But I was saying, hey, send me your artwork or send me your designs that you've done. I'd love to see them. And then I'll show them on the show. So Tatiana and Aaron both started sending me their work, and they're both aspiring, if not actually working costume designers. So Tatiana was sending me her designs, and Aaron was sending me his actual constructed garments that he was making. So then anyway, we just started like chatting, and now we're developing a show called, we haven't got a solid name yet. It's probably going to be called Game of Queens, where the three of us are going to do sort of like a red carpet style review of Game of Queens. Yeah, Game of Queens. I think, Aaron, that's what we decided. And we're all going to wear crowns and drink big goblets of wine. And so when the new season of Game of Thrones comes out, that's what we're going to do, because it's the final season. But then, we'll have the prequels. So we're very excited.
Danny's wig and I'll join too.
Okay, awesome. I'd love it. But then now they're like basically helping me with my video. So, and I'm not paying them anything. I'm a terrible employer. I'm just like, here's some work for you to do. Can you please do it? And I need it by tomorrow, but I don't pay them anything. So I've been so lucky. So this goes to show you that sometimes your viewers can sometimes become part of your team, right?
Yeah.
And it's built this lovely solid base. So we have a video coming out. Tatiana and Aaron have been working on it. I've been cracking the whip, and we're getting out the top 20 best men's Game of Thrones costumes. That's going to be hopefully coming out next week. And then we're gonna work on the Game of Queens show. Tatiana's designing the logo. I'm trying to get a wine sponsor. Nick, I don't know if you're still here. I don't know if that's legal to get a wine sponsor.
I could help design a few things if you'd like as well.
Oh, that would, yes, because you're I know. Can you tell me what school you go to? Are you allowed to do that? Because you're in Canada.
Well, I'm at the moment I'm not in school. I'm in the middle of transferring. But
was it Ryerson?
Yeah. No, I was at UIT, and now I'm going to be transferring over to Carleton.
What does UIT stand for? University
of Ontario Institute of Technology.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just asking if it was Ryerson, because I went to Ryerson. So, Nick, if you're still here, it turns out that Middle Earth and I are both from Canada, and we're both in Ontario. Like, what a small world. Like, how small of a world is that? Like, Nick is in Thailand. Tatiana is in Puerto Rico. Aaron is in South Carolina. Aisen's in Germany. UK Grow.
In fact, until a few months ago, I used to live in the GTA.
Oh, yeah, no way.
Yeah.
Well, Gord Eisman is from the GTA as well,
Mm-hmm.
if you know him, Gordon Eisman. So we've got like kind of an international thing, but it just happened that you and I happen to be in the same province. So I think it's kind of like kismet a little bit.
Yeah.
So let me go back and see if anybody else is commenting.
I do have a dual citizenship, so I'm also British as well.
Oh, you are? So were
Yeah.
you born in England?
Yeah.
So then when you watch Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and see these, these wonderful British actors cast and everything, you probably have a bit of a different perspective than I would as a Canadian.
Oh yeah, because my dad, he's a huge, like, he's always loved watching movies, and especially like when it's a British actor, he knows like all of them from A to Z. So
yeah, and actually Albert Finney, do you know who he is? He just passed away. He's a pretty famous British actor. And so and with the exception of Peter Dinklage, I think the cast is largely British.
Yeah.
So what is everyone saying here? Adrian says, this is a question for anyone. Did anyone participate in the Kickstarter Unseen Westeros art book authorized by George R.R. Martin? Well, I don't know if it's the same book, but I had a guest on a little while ago. Her name is Romy, and she was part of this art book that was released. It was a limited edition. So I'm not sure if that's the same one, Adrian. So she did 2 reproductions of Cersei's costumes. They were both featured in the book. So I'll have to find out if that's what it was called, but it was very limited and only a certain amount of people got it. And UK grosses, that's great. I'm not sure what that was about. Oh, Hindsight says Game of Queens is cute. Thanks. I don't know if Tatiana's still here. She says, UK Here We Grow says, I love Star Wars and Star Trek. So yeah, we were saying earlier, UK Here We Grow, that we're sort of comparing Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. Like we're not wanting to compare the two of them because they're similar in the way that Star Wars and Star Trek are. Like they're really their own thing.
Yeah, their own thing in their own right. Yeah.
Their own thing in their own right. Aaron says, my first fantasy movie I ever remember seeing was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
I'm a huge fan. I was actually a pretty big fan of Harry Potter as well.
Yeah, and Harry Potter I think that's an example of, for young people, that was sort of an introduction for young people to be able to get into fantasy and make that open to young people. Not actually everybody, but specifically, I think J.K. Rowling wrote that for young adults and children. I'm a big fan of them too. They're all on Netflix now, by the way, everybody. Oh, Hindsight says, rest in peace, Albert Finney. Yes. He's a wonderful actor. He had a good life though. I think he was 81 when he passed away. UK Here We Grow says, sorry guys, I got a call. I need to catch you all again. Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. So this was really nice because we got some new people in here today. And so what we're going to do, guys, we're not going to do a terribly long stream today. This is my first time meeting Middle Earth Lore. And now let me just ask you one other question. Where did you come up with the name? I mean, I love it, but where did you come up with that idea for the name?
Well, I don't know. It just kind of came to me because I've seen so many, Star Wars. All these Star Wars channels are like growing, right? There's so many of them. It's almost over too much. Like there's a lot of oversaturation, especially with the Star Wars community. There's so many channels, and Star Wars Theory is probably the biggest one out of all of them. And I've seen so many kind of variants where it's like Star Wars Theory, Star Wars Lore, all these different things. So I was thinking, well, if everyone's talking about Star Wars, how come I don't see too many people talking about Middle Earth? Like I've seen Geek Zone and I've seen Men of the West, but aside from them, and there's not too many. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to seize this opportunity and I'm going to go for this. And this name, I guess, just kind of came to me from, it kind of branched off from those other names. Yeah.
It's funny that you should say that because that's sort of how I had an idea. There used to be a channel years ago called In Search Of. I think actually it was Leonard Nimoy did the voiceover for it. And so one day I saw there was a channel called The Cinematography Of, And I was like, oh, you know, that's really, I started watching some of his channel. So he would do the cinematography of a TV show or a movie. And I thought that was really neat. And I thought, hey, I wonder if anybody's doing costumes. Like, you know, I have a background in costumes. So I thought that would be something I would like to see. You're obviously thinking that too. Like, well, I would like to see a channel about Middle Earth or about Lord of the Rings. And so I thought, well, maybe that would be a good idea. So I was a huge Game of Thrones fan. So I started with Game of Thrones, but I've been trying to do other shows. It's just hard because I tend to get lumped in to Game of Thrones mostly. But so now, do you want to tell me what you're obviously not live streaming yet, I guess, because you probably don't have enough subs.
I know I do. Because the thing is, I had to kind of decrease my upload schedule to once a week because it's been kind of getting pretty busy, and because this topic is very sensitive, right? I really need to make sure my research is done properly. But in order to compensate for the lack of uploads, I also do a live stream where I game as well on Saturdays.
Sure. So you're probably in a similar boat to me because you're having to do a lot of research. So how long does it take you to research one of your videos?
I mean, it depends on the topic. Like, usually it wouldn't take too long. I mean, it would probably take me about maybe a few hours just to research it. But if I really want to, make sure everything is done right, I need to actually go and look at every source that I can now, to make sure that, this is an accurate source, or if what I'm saying can be backed up from another source, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you're having to do a lot of fact checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as you grow, you're going to have people looking at your back content, and I have a video. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I've already made a couple of mistakes already. I mean, they're kind of minor-ish, but at the same time, I want to decrease that as much as possible. I don't want that to happen, but as soon as it does, then I'll go ahead and be like, okay, well, here's the correction video, and I'll.
Oh, hey, 30 Days is here. Do you know 30 Days? 30-day reviews?
No.
Oh, he's another creator. He has a channel where he takes a product. I think this is still your model, 30 Days. He takes a product, mostly grooming products for men, and he tries it out for 30 days, and then he does a product review on it at the end of 30 days. And he has a really awesome channel, and he helps mod my channel for me. So it's really nice to see you. He oftentimes is in Nick's stream. I was going to say that, guys, I have a couple of old videos. One of them, my channel is just a bit more than 2 years old now, I guess, maybe 2.5 years. So I have one really not very good video on Cersei Lannister where I didn't know how to edit very well, and it was my first attempt at doing a video. So, but I had left it up, and people still watch it for some reason. And I had someone comment the other day, I guess, that instead of saying Marjorie Terrell, I said Margaret. So I laughed at that. So she's like, what? What's with the Margaret and the Timothy or something, whatever I call these people? So, but I just sort of said to her, I didn't know how to edit then. I honestly didn't. I was like, I just did it like a straight, I know
exactly what that feels like. Because even when I'm doing my videos and I'm recording, the worst part is recording, because you have to read the script, but then I stumble over my words, and then sometimes I'll mispronounce a name, especially when it comes to this. And then I have to go back and re-edit it, re-record it, and it just sounds so off.
Yeah, so it's like what I do is I do it in stages. I do it in like segments. But now that brings me to a question. Like, okay, I have this all the time. I'm infamous for mispronouncing Game of Thrones words. Do you get called out for saying a certain name or word wrong, or like do some people have a different way of thinking how something is said versus something else?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of times maybe, but I really make sure that I try to pronounce it, because I know people are going to be on me about that. But yeah, it gets really difficult to sometimes pronounce a lot of these names, especially if you never heard of it.
Yeah, like, so if it's a made up word, or it's a made up name, one of the things that I got, people were giving me a hard time, and I just said it actually, was Terrell. So the thing was, so Blade Runner is my favorite movie of all time, and in it's called Tyrell Corporation. But in the show Game of Thrones, it's Tyrell, although apparently there was some discrepancy about like some of the cast would say Tyrell and some would say Tyrell. So I had one girl really come down on me about it. And I was kind of like, it's just a name. Like, give me a break, you know? Like, I was a little bit like, give her a bit of attitude about it.
To be fair, though, I have to be more careful because there are appendices, right? And this is a whole language, and you kind of really need to look at, you know, Return of the King, go to the back, flip to the back, look at how that letter is pronounced, so forth.
Yeah, so you've got some good reference. You know, they did a pronunciation guide on Game of Thrones, make Game of Thrones like blog put it out, so there is an actual thing. But then again, even on that, they said, you know, like the guy who did the Dothraki language, he says people were saying Dothraki, but that's not even the way George Martin says it. He says it Dothraki, I think. Guys in the chat, you can tell me if you know. So before we finish up here, I wanted to know, so you're pretty busy with your channel. What's a good way for people to find you? And, you know, obviously you've got your channel, so tell us a bit about that. Middle Earth, I think I've lost you again. Okay, so once he comes back, I'll get him to tell me where. Okay, I have put his links below, but I'm going to let him tell you a bit about that. Okay, so next weekend I'm working on having Tatiana and Aaron on to do a sort of like an introduction to this new show we're going to be doing during the Game of Thrones season. So there were some pictures of Game of Thrones released just this week. I was on In Deep Geek's channel talking a little bit about the new costumes that were showed in the stills. If anybody hasn't seen them, I think I tweeted it out, but also it's on my Facebook page. And so I left a link in the description below of the live stream I did with the In Deep Geek. Oh, are you there?
Hello.
Hi. Oh, I was just asking you before we wrap up. Do you want to tell everybody how people can contact you best?
Yeah. I'm actually I'm active on all social media platforms. So mostly Instagram though. Aside from YouTube. And probably Twitter maybe. I also have Discord, so you can go check that out. There's a Middle Earth Discord that I'm part of, and I'm very active there.
Okay.
And I'll put a link there to it. But yeah,
if you want to send that to me, I'll put it in the description below. I've got I do have your Facebook, I've got your Twitter, and I've got your YouTube channel. So I recommend everyone go over to Middle Earth Lore's YouTube channel, check it out. It looks amazing. Actually, it's here. How you do it? Do you know him? It's John.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
John, I never know what to call you. I call you John. I call you Rigor. I call you Igor. I call you You Do It. He does. I think do you do like home repairs? He does like construction, I believe. He can correct me if I'm wrong. Another really lovely creator. Hi, Pablo. Got a nice group of people in here today. He says Doth Rock Kahai. Or Dothraki. Okay,
I'm just gonna say Dothraki. It's just easier.
Dothraki. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So that's a George thing. He, you know, so this just goes to show you that you're never going to be able to please everyone. The good news about it, though, is that Nick says if you mispronounce something, you'll increase your engagement. You get more people commenting on your videos. So he actually recommends that something like that, Pablo.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put the Discord in the chat. Oh, wait.
Okay. Oh yeah, put the Discord in the chat, and then also
if that allows me.
Now I'm on Instagram, so I'll follow you and there. Okay. And if anyone wants to go over to Instagram and follow me or follow Middle Earth, it's actually Middle-Earth, just so everyone knows, Middle-Earth.
And I also like the E is capitalized. I know. That's just because I thought it looked better, but I know the actual word is supposed to be lowercase. But yeah.
Oh, I'm not gonna say anything about it. It is capitalized or it's not capitalized?
No, mine is capitalized, but the actual word isn't.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'm just gonna put how it's spelled. Okay. Kai isn't K isn't Caesar. I Dothrak K. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. See, oh, okay, I don't know. And okay, so for me, we're gonna have so maybe Tatiana and Aaron, we're working on that, having them next weekend. We're gonna finally get out our top 20 best men's costumes. I want to thank everyone actually who helped with the polls. We did a bunch of polls on all of the men's costumes, and it was really like it was really great. I got a really great response. Tatiana and Aaron have been working really hard on narrowing it down. It was super difficult, wasn't it, you guys? Just getting down to 20. I kind of let them do that. I was like, you guys decide. I don't know. I just like Joffrey and Peter Baelish. So you do, it says he lives in Jersey. We don't really know grammar or punctuation or spelling for that matter. That's very funny. And what else? Oh, and I'll be talking more about this in the coming, videos and streams, but I'm working on my book that I'm doing with my good friend Patrick. He's doing all the illustrations. It's called Game of Thrones, an illustrated costume guide. I haven't talked to you about that, Middle Earth, that I'm doing that. And cool. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
So Patrick's doing the illustrations. It's going to be about 170 illustrations at this point. It's amazing. Wow. I'm aiming to have it out by April 1st. I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen before the new season comes out, which is going to be April 15th of Game of Thrones. So it's going to be an ebook, and I'll probably be talking a bit more about it. And also we're going to be doing some giveaways and stuff with it.
Sorry, go ahead. Is it going to be... is it published with a company, or is it self-published, like through Amazon?
It's self-published. Yeah, okay. It's self-published. I've actually self-published 2 books before, so this is gonna be my 3rd self-published book. So it's gonna be self-published, and I'm doing it myself and with Patrick. So I'm trying to get it done. But the illustrations are so beautiful. My friend Patrick is doing an amazing job. I've been posting some of them on Twitter and on social media, like Instagram and so on. So he's just doing an amazing job. And I'm just taking my videos that I've done over the last few years and just sort of put it into book form. So for cosplayers or anyone's just interested in the costumes. The other thing, one more thing before we go, I had the opportunity to interview this fella named The Dragon Demands. He's on Twitter. I met him through there again. I sort of hit him up. But for anyone who's interested, he is one of the major contributors to the Game of Thrones Wikia, on, Wikia fandom. There's every show has its own Wikia. So he's one of the major ones, and he did the costume portion of it. So I had a really great chat with him. So I'm hoping to have that broken down and uploaded, probably over the next week or so. Gave me a lot of really great information about how that all came about. It was really fascinating, actually. And he did it all for free. These guys on Wikia, they do it for free. They don't get paid. Sort of just a labor of love we were talking about, right? So anyways, guys, so is there anything else anyone had to say? Oh, you do said that's amazing. Thank you. Kaiser. I live in the South, so you all know. Yes, I do know that, Aaron. I will be a hardback and fabric samples ever. 30 days. Patrick and I are eventually, if we're going to do the ebook. It has fabric images in it, of the costumes. If I found the source of the fabric, it's got images of it. But eventually, we'll do a print book of it if it turns out well. Oh, I am Dow Jones is here. Hi. Oh, thank you. I'm really glad you're here. He says, can't wait to read. It wasn't as traumatizing hard as Top 20 Women, but it was pretty hard. Yeah, Tatiana, I was saying that, I think a lot of people think that just because it's the men's costumes, that would be really, really easy to do. But I think it may not have been as hard as the women, but certainly it was pretty challenging for you guys. And then what we're going to do after that is we'll do the armor. So we're going to have a separate armor one because it was kind of, it didn't really feel right to lump, say, John's armor in with the clothing. So we're going to just do that as a dedicated video. So Middle Earth, are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm talking a lot over you there. And Asen says she can't wait. That's awesome. So, okay. So guys, that's it then. Like I said, I'll probably be back next weekend. I'd love to have you back on again. Middle Earth, would you like to come back again?
Yeah, sure.
No, I don't want to come back. I have to think about it. Yeah, we'll have to do it again. I think it'd be really fun. Or if we have the Comic-Con, we could do something down there. That would be really fun.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Expo. We could do like that.
I usually cosplay, so if I'm going as anyone from Lord of the Rings or Hobbit, I'm thinking maybe Thorin. I'm not too sure yet.
Oh, you know, it'd be fun. I was actually trying to get my Outlander friend to do this. It'd be really, really fun if we met down there and then we were to go around talking to people and you be in costume. I have a little bit of a live setup that I have, so we could do a little thing like that. Would you be willing?
Oh yeah. I'd love. That's something that I wish I had experienced before, actually. But yeah, if I don't do a face reveal before then, people are going to be like, "Who's that?"
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well. You're not going to you wouldn't wear a mask or anything then?
No.
Okay. Well, you have to do a face reveal before then, or we'll just blur out your face, I guess. I don't know, or behind your back. Okay. So everybody, thank you so much. Do you want to say goodbye?
Yeah. Thank you for joining the stream. I had a lot of fun. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, go ahead and do that. And yeah, thanks for having me on this live stream.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, and everyone go over to Middle Earth as well and check out his channel. Okay, I've got it in the link, the description below. So everyone have a great weekend. Thanks so much for coming. And it was really nice seeing all of you. It was a really nice turnout today. Okay, take care, guys.